celebrates democracy, because election is is the party, is the nightclub for democracy. When you want to celebrate, we've had democracy. It's election, the ability of people to go to the polls and choose their leaders, make it obvious that it's government by the people for the government of the people by the people and for the people.
So it being said that when the issue of interest comes in,
It now becomes government of some persons.
Yeah.
Because in the end, when that candidate emerges as a result of somebody's interest, what will happen? The person would serve that person's interest in government, as against serving the interest of the people who came together.
Are you
to
not
say,
always?
"We chose you."
Doesn't it baffle you that at the end of every elections, most of the elections, you see parties setting up committees for reconciliations?
Oh yeah.
So
So like we know it's going to happen, but we're just going to do it and then we'll appeal later. Let's fix up. Oh my goodness.
now this issue, this controversy.
Yeah.
I don't have much of that information. It's still under investigation. So if truly this information is real,
The one about the school, right?
yeah, let the police take over this issue, because beating up somebody to this state, which we've seen the picture here, isn't very nice.
It took me. I had to look at it twice to believe it wasn't a lady.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. That's inhuman. But we'll allow the police deal with it.
Yes.
Right. Let's move on from this paper. Share your thoughts also. Remember, if there's any headline from that paper catching your attention, would like to hear from you this morning. You know the phone lines already. If you're just tuning in, what's popped on the paper? That's what's up. The number is to call 0700-000-1069, 0902-225-5088. If you send a message via SMS, we would also take it. The number is 0902-225-5088. WhatsApp is 0802-200-5155.
All right, let's check out Punch newspaper this morning. We have big headlines here. Debt servicing rises, gobs 72% of federal government revenues. Debt services rising and gobs 72% of federal government revenues. That's on page 20 of the Punch newspaper. Now, there are riders to that headline. Debt servicing to revenue ratio jumped from 54.66% in 2019 to 72% in 2020. That's a whole lot. And finally, ratio high because of indiscipline. We may lose infrastructure to creditors. Utomi is quoted on that one. Now, away from that, talking about the Super TV scandal, we suspect conspiracy in Super TV boss murder, says the Commissioner of Police. 1,320 suspects paraded. That's on page 4 and 5. And then talking about COVID-19, Unilag orders students to vacate campus. Continues lectures online. That's on page 3. And also Nigerian activist arrested for protesting Benin Republic's encroachment released. That's on page 7. And then talking about the Yoruba Nation rally, Falana takes over slain sales girl case. Lagos pledges justice. That's on page 4. And then let's just look just below that this morning. Reps condemned lopsidedness in Navy recruitment. Demand suspension. That's on page 3. And also Abiodun blames federal government as residents tackle governor over Lagos Abeokuta highway. That's on page 5. And then just above the masthead this morning, talking about a Greek subsidy. Farmers fault federal government. Claims 6 million operators registered. That's on page 2. And then finally, despite denial, federal government earmarks 20 billion naira for COVID-19 vaccine distribution. That's on page 23 of the Punch newspaper. You find this and much more on that paper this morning. I'm pretty sure everyone is interested in the big headline there. Debt servicing rises. Gobs 72% of federal government revenues. That's on page 20.
Now let's go to Punch newspaper, which the breakdown is very clear there. From a review of the budget performance in the year 2020, that's the 2020 Appropriation Act.
Yeah.
We got to hear that the federal government made a total of 3.25 trillion naira in the year 2020. And the review showed that federal government spent a total of 2.34 trillion naira. Now, if you made 3.25 trillion naira in the year under review, that's 2020, You now spend 2.34 trillion naira on debt servicing within the year. How much is left for you to use to implement other projects? Now, this means that 72% of the government's revenue was spent on debt servicing. It also puts the government's debt servicing to the to revenue ratio at 72%. Now, in 2019, we should recall, federal government made a total of total revenue of 3.86 trillion naira within the year. Debt servicing got 2.11 trillion naira, putting the federal government's debt servicing to revenue ratio in 2019 at 54.66%. Ogo. When you
I'm just hearing all this large.
so it means between the year 2019 and 2020, federal government's debt servicing to revenue ratio jumped from 54.66% to 72%.
I mean, that's
Now, where do we go?
This is just debt servicing now, not
that's,
even.
that's about almost 20% rise. Almost 20% rise. So,
should we continue to borrow?
you know, it's interesting every time the Minister of Finance comes out to say, y'all crying too much, man. Our debt profile is still within manageable limits. We hear that all the time. The Debt Management Office also comes out with statements.
Thank you for reminding
like
me. Now, as of March 31, according to Punch newspaper, the report they put forward this morning, the Debt Management Office puts Nigeria's total debt at 33.11 trillion naira. Out of this figure, 20.46 trillion naira, that's about 62.33% of it. Of that figure was owed to domestic creditors.
That's creditors within Nigeria. People that decided to borrow government money.
Now, while 12.47 trillion naira, that's about 37.67% was owed to
money that we borrowed from
foreign
outside
creditors.
Nigeria. Okay,
So
so
it all together and then check.
it's I'm trying to find the adjective. If I say it's worrisome, it doesn't define
It's really worrisome.
And I'll tell you why it doesn't define it for me. Because you're supposed to generate money to run government, right? But we're generating money to pay back
service
debts.
debt.
Okay, we're not even paying back yet.
We're servicing.
We're paying the interests on the debt. That's what debt servicing means. We're paying the interest on the debt, right? So we've never started paying back.
That's the thing. We haven't started.
We've not gotten to Liberty,
Yeah.
what do you call it? To Leadership newspaper yet. Because there's a story there. The headline says, State must reduce reliance on federal allocations. That was coming from Gombe anyway. But now, if states are relying so much on federal allocations without looking inwards on how to generate money internally, then there is a problem.
Well, definitely. And part of the problem is that the federal government, because of the load that it carries on the exclusive legislative list, has made states become very lazy. And that's the truth. States have become very, very lazy. So they just now, at the end of the month, I mean, we're just going to go with our bag. We'll go to the Federation Account Allocation Committee and get our share of the cake and come back and do whatever we want to do with it. That's part of the reason so many persons are clamoring for us to go back to what it used to be. Do you understand? When states made their money, harnessed their resources, did what they needed to do, and then paid tax to the federal government, contributed to the federal government, as against going to go and collect from the federal government.
Okay. Now let's go back to that story.
And then we're borrowing money. You know that we're borrowing money to pay. We're borrowing money to pay salaries. We're borrowing money to do things that we're not supposed to be borrowing money to do. You borrow money to invest, to make more money. That's simple advice that finance managers give you. Don't ever borrow money to spend
don't spoil my
without making money.
Just don't spoil my day.
I mean,
Let me
it's
just-
enough to spoil your day.
Let me
really.
just inform you, like
I'm bothered. You know why? Because my kids that are not here yet are going to have to work to pay these loans.
of the domestic debt profile that we just talked about. 16.51 trillion naira belongs to the federal government, while 4.12 trillion naira belongs to the 36 states of the federation and the Federal Capital Territory Administration.
Why is the FCT even borrowing money? You don't have a governor at the FCT. You have a minister
But you need to.
that's under
you have to
that
carry out
answers to the
projects.
federal government. So why does the federal government not give them money to do what they need to do at the FCT? The seat of power is at the FCT. So you expect that the president would even oversee what happens there? You should just have somebody that makes things run smoothly, and that's the thing. So I don't understand it. The FCT is not a state on its own; it's the seat of power. So when I hear and the Federal Capital Territory also borrowing like a government, I'm worried.
Ugo, when you spend about 3.17 trillion naira on personnel and overhead costs, that's what I'm talking from the federal government's expenditure, the statistics we've gotten from this, how federal government spend their money, then government also spend about 1.7 trillion naira on capital expenditure. Total expenditure for the year was about, I think, 9.75 trillion, if I got it right. Then how do we really spend? Do we really think very well? How well do we sit down, plan, come up with a appropriated figure, say, okay, this is what we expect to spend this year, and then you now try and see how you can either source for the money and then use it in implementing those things. In the process of sourcing for the money, you now weigh, where am I going to get majority of these resources? Internally, or borrowing, or from taxes?
I'm laughing.
Why are you laughing?
I guess.
Very soon, the people on the seat will move, and it will be our turn to handle and manage the affairs of the country.
I'll tell you why I'm laughing.
Why?
Because if we don't cut down on the things that we're spending huge money on.
What do we spend money on?
Oh yeah.
I hear people say cut down the convoy.
You want us
now
to
you calculate the amount amount we spend on fuel is cutting one person to either the neighboring states or the airport or wherever he wants to go to.
I mean, a governor is making trips.
I'm not talking about the governor.
No,
I'm talking about VIPs.
I want to mention it. A governor is making trips.
Okay.
And he has in his entourage people who do not have a business on that.
But he can't stop them. For instance, if the governor wants to go to airport and
if you say we can't stop
government
them,
officials decide to go.
If you say we can't stop
just
them,
to wave for him to go.
If you say we can't stop them, I'm bothered about that, because we had a Peter Obi as governor of Anambra State who made a difference, who understood that taxpayers' money should be used to develop Anambra State and not to drive around with so many vehicles, V8 engines running at top speed.
What do we stand to lose if
burning
60
fuel?
people decide to escort His Excellency to...
How much do they get as ESTA code for escorting the governor to the airport and back to pick him? How much do we spend as ESTA code? We need to look at those fees. How much do we spend on ESTA code?
Is there an ESTA code
There is.
escorting?
There is. I'm just hearing How much do you spend on ESTA code when people travel with the governor for a meeting in Abuja, for instance, and the governor is in the meeting with maybe two other persons who are relevant to that meeting, and every other person is outside chilling and accumulating bills, hotel bills,
let's
feeding,
quickly look at
drinks.
leadership newspaper this morning. You're going. I'm not ready to.
No, for real. It's painful.
You see that part? I'm not following
It's
you.
painful.
But the issue is, going by what you've said, if truly there is an ESTA code.
No, not if truly. There is ESTA code.
Is that why people rush to go there?
Oh, Jesus, my goodness.
Maybe we have about 60,
All right, leadership newspaper this morning. We have checked attack on police formations. This is credited to the Inspector General of Police. Minister endorses teachers' reality TV show. Why media should self-regulate. This coming from Falana. Electoral Act. Lawan slams critics of National Assembly gets 900 text messages. So it's commercial. 1,850 graduate police inspectors seek promotion. Suspended Kano anti-graft agency boss rights Kano Assembly. States must reduce reliance on federal allocation. This is coming from Gombe officials. Still on leadership newspaper this morning, we have Nigeria moves to tackle terrorists with robots. Abuja politician fueling crisis in Bauchi. This is coming from the governor. And NEDC unveils master plan for Northeast. Federal government cancels Port Harcourt Maiduguri railway contract. Super Eagles captain Ahmed Musa marries third wife. And in the entertainment world, we have 5 things you didn't know about Sound Sultan. I think that's all we can take on leadership newspaper this morning. Ugo, why did you react when you had the headline, Nigeria moves to tackle terrorists with robots? Are we not up to date with that? Can't we do it?
This is why I laughed. So you're going to need a control center for these robots. If you're going to send robots into the field, right? You will need a control center. I will go back to what somebody in this current administration said at the federal level. The satellites that we're using to track insurgents and bandits, the subscription has run out. It's only working by the grace of God.
We read that one. So
I did say it. I mean, somebody said it. Someone whose responsibility is to make sure that we get satellites running for satellite imagery of, areas to help the security agents on the ground and in the air deal with insurgency and banditry. The satellite is running by God's grace. So I hope these robots will not come and then they get on the road and they start complaining of hunger.
Anyway, this information coming from the
We
Senate
start hearing
yesterday, right?
that the battery ran down.
they're running by grace too.
They got to where the bandits were. They got to the
And the
camp
batteries.
and they lost signal. The battery ran down. We didn't know that it was not charged properly.
I don't know why you have some reservation. You're in doubt.
Because we've not shown capacity over a period of time. That's my problem.
Good morning to you.
Oh yeah.
Sorry, feel free to call back. Okay.
0700 0001069 0902 225 5088. Let's hear from you this morning. Get with us. Just quickly, let me look at one of the comments that we already have in this morning before we come back and continue to talk. John Mbo says, good morning, Yugee and HighPrayz. Electronic voting should be used during election to avoid crises that occur during voting candidates of your choice. On Nnamdi Kanu's issue, let the federal government handle this situation with care because it's a sensitive one. And then another reaction. Is it the function of the Senate to order 59 agencies or ICPC on misappropriation of funds? This is why Nigeria has weak institutions to tackle corruption, because this cannot occur in the United States of America.
Do they have oversight functions that covers that field? Yes.
The answer is yes, they do. They do. Okay. Okay, Stanley Chigala says, good morning, XLFM. Yugee, the lady with the HighPrayz, and Mr. Charles. My reaction is on the punch. CP, we suspect conspiracy in Super TV boss murder. 1,320 suspects paraded. Your reaction, you say, I'm just wondering why such a huge number and these persons are suspects too. So after the parade and they're not connected to the crime, what happens? How do you redeem their image after exposing and tagging them to such crime? Or it's going to be, oh, we're sorry, we thought you had something to do with the crime. Please, I believe there's a better way to go with investigation, especially with high intel and utilizing more of technology. They should step up their game. I thought in Lagos, they said there's a law in place that bars the police from parading suspects. Because of these concerns that Stanley raised. So if it ends up and the person is not involved or connected to the crime, how do you now go back? And I've never seen the police come out to say, we're sorry. In fact, we're putting out an apology on the dailies to say, we're sorry, we suspected you wrongly.
And if you don't know your rights, if you're being paraded in the wrong way, why don't just sue the police force?
How many people have the money?
Yinka Dumakin did sue the police from time ago, and he won the case.
How many people have the money to afford lawyers to sue the police force?
Some lawyers are very happy. They will do it on
we're looking at a country, first of all, where you have the poverty capital of the world to start with. You have more poor people in this country than any other place in the world, according to ratings. You're looking at a country where too many people do not even trust that they have a right any longer.
How many people even know their rights?
There are so many lawyers out there who
rights?
are ready to take up such cases so that they will make a name. So they do pro bono.
Okay, so maybe I'm just going to refer you to some of these people who may have these issues, who may have been arrested out of suspicion.
So don't allow anybody to trample upon your right.
Yeah, so that they'll come to you and then you link them up with one of those lawyers that you know. You do that pro bono now. It's called community service.
Why are you using me?
I'm just saying, you know some of them.
Because you know the implication.
Now you see, right? You see the issue. That's the thing. That's the thing. My question is, why can the Nigeria police not be like, maybe I'm watching too much movies, right? Why can they be
I
like,
hope you
why
know
can they
Mark
be
John
like,
is listening to
I know
us.
he is, and I mean it's to help.
I don't
it's
want
to
to
help the
go
system
and
grow.
stay in that particular room that he has been telling us about.
Really, I mean the truth has got to be told.
There's
So
no AC there.
what happens? What happens to you're investigating a crime? You do your due diligence in investigation. You have enough evidence to incriminate me, and then you come and pick me up, so that by the time you take me in, you have evidence enough to nail me, as against picking me up first before you begin to investigate. So I now become your you now use me to find out what you
And
want.
some person stay there as long as
Do you understand?
before the investigation starts.
More than
proper.
24 hours, and the constitution says you cannot keep somebody beyond 24 hours without
Bro,
taking the
if you
person
know
to
your
court.
rights and the police is keeping you beyond the expected
Have
time,
you have you
call
been have
on
you,
your
have you
lawyer.
been slapped on your phone withdrawn from me? I'm asking. I'm asking.
That's brutality,
Okay.
which you can
But
as well contest.
does it happen?
You can contest.
Does it happen?
Why would you?
Well, Mr. Soul here says, dear panelists, I support your views on internal democracy. Another challenge is electoral bodies in federal and states, Mr. Soul.
All right, Mr. Soul, thank you.
I talk about
for-
electoral bodies. That's where the question comes: how independent is INEC and other electoral bodies?
You hear the name, Independent National Electoral Commission.
Yeah.
State Independent Electoral Commission. Doesn't that tell you that they're independent?
I was asking.
Did you
how
hear? Did you hear dependent
How?
National Electoral Commission?
independent?
Did you hear state dependent? Are they dependent on anybody? You can beat your chest about being independent of your parents because you don't need them to survive any longer. It's the same way. INEC doesn't need anybody. It's independent.
Who funds INEC?
That your salary gets paid doesn't mean you're dependent. Don't you put in work for it? These people they're independent. We need to understand that.
Well, let's hear from our
Very
listeners.
independent. Ivomo Bongakirite says, good morning, Yugee, Mr. Charles and HighPrayz. My reaction is from the Global Concord that says, man turns school to brothel in Uyo. If the information is true, then it's high time for the Commissioner for Education to look into the way schools are running, their activities, and make sure that before any school is open in the state, they check and see if the school has qualifications required. Watch pop on the papers. We've seen well qualified teachers, both in Nigeria and outside Nigeria, abuse students. You know, we've seen teachers qualified. We've seen schools qualified also. You know, abuse what is supposed to be the learning process. So, is it really about qualification or proper supervision? I think that's what should be happening. Proper supervision. That's what the Ministry of Education, and I'm particular about Akwa Ibom State. That's what I'm not seeing. Proper supervision. I don't think they're doing enough with that. I don't think they're doing enough with that. Let's take our last message this morning.
Well, I thought we were going to look at what Falana just said on Leadership Newspaper.
Can we touch that just 1 minute?
Okay, let me just bring up one particular point that he made. He actually urged the Nigerian media to self-regulate or be forcefully regulated by the federal government.
I've been a huge advocate. I'm sorry it might not sound like something that the regulators want to hear at the moment, but I've been a huge advocate for the industry regulating itself. Do you understand? I mean, in most parts of the world, the US for instance, what you have is that in this part, Akwa Ibom for instance, you have radio stations, and so among the radio stations they nominate people who would serve on the regulatory board. You understand? And the rules are there. If they find a station has or a show has infringed or messed or broken the law, what they do is they serve you papers, you go to court, the court determines whether truly you have. So you get a fair hearing, you can defend yourself. And then an appropriate sanction is slammed on you by the court, a penalty for defaulting on the regulations. That's what you have that happens. As against what we have right now where, you're slammed, you're fined, so there's judge, jury, and everything all put together in one. Most times, you hear complaints of no chance of fair hearing and stuff.
Now, but I'm trying to find out, what does this man mean by the media should self-regulate before being forcefully?
Self-regulate. You know what the rules are. Regulate
the
yourself.
do's and
you know the ethics
So
and
you follow
ethos of the job.
ethics
Follow it.
and do not allow somebody
it.
to come in and
That's
enforce
it.
something that
That's
you
it.
will
That's,
not
first,
be
that's
happy
that's what professionalism is in the first place. You know the ethics and ethos, and you play by those rules.
with.
You play outside those rules, it means you're not a professional. So first of all, do we even have industry players that know the rules? It's part of the big problem with broadcasting in Nigeria. You have too many people who do not know the basics, who do not know the ethics.
Somebody
of
just wakes up
information.
today because he has access to internet, just
Oh, yeah.
open up a blog and start publishing, doing copy and paste
Oh.
without verifying.
And he's
So
a
who
journalist.
checks?
He's a journalist.
He's a citizen journalist.
And he'll be registered.
Oh, really?
He'll be registered as
That's
a
what they
journalist
call-
with the NUG.
That I don't know.
You won't know.
That I'm not. I can't say that
You won't
now.
know.
If it used to happen, I'm not sure it is happening again.
I've not said it's happening now. I'm saying I have seen it happen.
Not under the leadership of Amos Etuk. No, even here in Akwa Ibom, that, for instance, no, it cannot happen.
You now hold brief for him.
Close to him.
Okay.
But if we still have such people like that, then we should weed them out. Get them out. If you're not a journalist, you're not a journalist. So why come and brag that you're a journalist? For what? To do copy and paste? Is that journalism?
Should I tell you one of the questions I wish I could ask? That everybody who was at the parade of the Udwa guy, the suspected murderer of Inyobong Omorin, that they show an ID card. Would it be too much to ask? That all of those people who were there asking questions, show an ID,
Show an ID
where they work and how they qualify to be a journalist.
don't see, you see this issue you want to
I know I'm going to get flogged for
you
it.
see
It's
this
fine.
issue you want
Time
to
is out. I'm just this back and forth.
I was there
Oh, you were there
and
too?
I believe you heard when I said, please, gentlemen, can you give me space to ask questions?
Okay. Were you the
Because
one
the people that surrounded that
were
guy,
you the one that asked what's his
even the
advice
policemen
is
were
to
there
young
too.
people? Were you the one that asked what his advice is to young people?
Or if he
Were you-
was
were you the journalist? Or if he was in love?
He was in love. No, I'm not the one. You
Okay.
know the people that ask. See, the
Okay.
pictures are there.
I just wanted to know your own rule.
Ugo,
We've got to go right
Ugo,
now.
you don't
Time
have
is
any
out.
union. That's the problem.
Time is
here.
out. We've got to go.
You stay here. This studio is your union. Okay?
We spent too much time on the show this morning.
It's like people do enjoy us. They don't
Yeah.
want to call in
Yeah.
and be asking questions.
Nsikek says,
Enjoying the drama.
says, good morning, Yugee and other people in the house.
Good
To me,
morning.
buying governorship or presidential form should be reduced so that when they get to that position, they have a good mind to think about the citizens. Thanks, God bless you.
Buying what?
Governorship and presidential aspiration forms.
Mm-hmm.
You say you should reduce the price.
You should reduce it.
The form is not even as expensive as what you're allowed to spend to run for the office. We've got to run right now. Charles, thank you so much this morning. Time is out. Gospel needs to come in right now. Like
Thank
right
you.
now.
Right
When next
now.
I sit
Right
here,
now.
just be careful. Don't mention anything about the union that I belong to.
Okay.
All right.
Just stay
No,
clear.
no problem. Maybe I should give you guys
Well,
the same
form your union.
advice. The same advice that Femi Falana is giving to media practitioners. Regulate yourself. Thank you for being a part of it. We've got the talk coming up at 9:05. Make sure you don't miss out. We're going to be looking at the Electoral Offences Bill, and we would like to share your thoughts on it. So stay right here.